most product companies do not even consider people from the services background. So how did you get your first break into product?
And I wanted to go into a product-based company, so I just wanted to upskill myself.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot of things which a product-based company might look like.
A lot of people are saying, a lot of developers are thinking their job might be gone in next couple of years. Do you think that will happen?
Personally speaking, I don't think so. It's just that, you see, no one can take up your job unless you upskill themselves.
What kind of engineers do you think will be replaced by GenAI?
Someone who is just plain vanilla, again, can easily get replaced.
Do you still code?
I do.
So how do you approach these engineers, who are always looking for something new?
Try to balance. Okay, we are doing product development, we'll do refactoring, but in the same sprint, so that you have a balance of both the things.
So there has been a lot of noise around, 100 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours work week. How many hours you are working in a week?
Kind of a person who is, don't mind slogging, don't mind putting in 10 hours if there is need.
Right.
यार बैठते हैं, काम करते हैं, करके ही जाएंगे.
So you have worked across different geographies.
Yeah.
And different domains. Specifically talking about, Noon, जहाँ पर you have engineering teams both in India as well as in UAE, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you, fill in that gap between two different cultures?
Eventually we worked out and made the other team also understand that, okay, whatever work dependencies we have, let's resolve them during our common days and make sure the one day that is left, we are not disturbing each other.
Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Tech with Sukant. Today we have Ankit. He's currently heading engineering at Novatr. And over to you, Ankit. Please, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what you are doing at Novatr?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure
being on your show. And so myself, Ankit, I have over 15 years of experience working as a software engineer. So I'm an engineer by heart. Did my schooling from Delhi, and later on did engineering in electrical and electronics. But very soon I realized I wanted to be a software engineer, so joined Infosys, and that is where my journey started. And from there, moved on to various startups. So back in 2010, when I started, startup culture was just brewing. So always wanted to work in a product-based company, and that's how I made the choices of moving from one startup to another. So I've been fortunate enough to work in different kind of startups: travel, health, fintech, hyper local discovery platforms, and OLX as well was my first big company that I worked on, and now currently I'm working in an edtech startup called Novatr. So here we are trying to build from grounds up what an educational platform should be, and that's what we're working on currently.
Nice. So मुझे एक बात बताओ आप. So you mentioned that you started from Infosys. There are a lot of people who start from the services company, and सबका the end goal is कि यार product में move करना है, but they really don't know how to get started with that. Right. So कैसे करा आपने, कैसे करा, and what do you suggest for these folks? How should they and what should they do to transition?
So see, when I was at Infosys, I was very fortunate to get into a product development from there itself. My first project that I got was build an e-commerce platform, and with that, with the kind of folks that were there with me, the seniors that I had with them, I enjoyed a lot while I was building a product from grounds up. That was the first line of code that I was writing for the whole project. So that gave me a good indication of how do you think while building a product, because during those time I remember I was speaking to my seniors and they said that while you are in a services based company, you will be only working on something as a small thing that you will be working, where you will just probably just do a refactoring or maybe add more line of
But
codes.
आपने transition कैसे करा? Because see, the biggest problem is that most product companies do not even consider people from the services background. So how did you get your first break into product?
So I mean, that's how I was trying to while I started to look out for jobs,
Mhm.
and I wanted to go into a product based company. So I just wanted to upskill myself.
Mhm.
And I learned a lot of things which a product based company might look like. It could be, they want to look at your aptitude, they want to look at how well you are writing your data structures and
Right.
how well you are in algorithms.
Okay.
So that is what I prepared, and then that led me into a product based company,
Mhm.
Make My Trip, where I joined
Got it.
after Infosys.
Mhm.
And then with it, Make My Trip, it gave me a lot of confidence that I can understand scale, I can understand. So when, to give you an example, from every product company you talk about scalability.
Right.
So with the growth that Make My Trip had at that point, gave me a lot of high where I was building for scale.
Mhm.
So I learned a lot of trick of trades, and that my mindset was shaped into that form where I knew that I will always be able to work in a startup. So for any new individual as well who wants to go transition into a product company from a services company, I would say that they should just look out for upskilling themselves into writing good code,
Mhm.
high quality code, and problem solving skills, analytical
Okay.
mindset. That helps you to get into those kind of companies.
So probably, because what I have seen is most of the folks from the services background uh, do not have that depth,
Hmm.
right? So I think that's what differentiates a good engineer from a average engineer, the depth of what they are doing.
Yes, I think that is very important. Where you go deep into understanding why something behaves like this.
Yeah.
Why is it that you've written one line of code and suddenly something has happened?
Hmm.
So if you understand that, you are able to apply yourself in a lot
Right.
other things as well, and then your mind explodes.
Hmm.
You are then able to figure out, okay, this is the problem. What is the best I can do? And that
Makes
that kind of
sense.
mentality, if you have, then any product company, you will like a gold
Hmm.
mind, where they need people who think deep, develop something, think out of the box, develop something that help them scale. So that is where that helps. And for a services based employee, or someone who is working in a services company, they become very I'll say hardwired at just a single line of thought. So they don't are not
Right.
susceptible to change, or they don't
They're
like
not looking at a bigger picture,
bigger
right? So
picture.
they're just looking at, getting things done for the
Exactly.
short term. और बाद में देखा
हाँ,
जाएगा.
बाद में देखा जाए कि आज ये करना है, ये
Correct.
करो चलो. But then you have to have an explorer mindset, I'll
Right.
say. That just helps you to reach and climb that ladder.
So Abhi, with the rise of Gen AI, and a lot of people are saying, a lot of developers are thinking कि their job might be gone in next couple of years.
Hmm.
Do you think that will happen?
Personally speaking, I don't think so. It's just that, you see, no one can take up your job unless you upskill themselves, and that
Mm.
happens 10 years ago as well.
Right.
If there was no Gen I, even if you don't upskill yourself, you will become irrelevant, and that is the case today.
Right.
So you need to learn the trick of trades, and I believe, even if I speak, whenever I speak to any junior as well, I say you need to keep upskilling yourself.
Hmm.
ठीक है, so जितना सीखोगे, जितना learn करोगे, you will become relevant. So Gen AI is a trade now.
Yeah.
You need to learn that. You need to learn how to use that. And once you do that, probably you will solve some other problem. Maybe
Hmm.
whatever problem you are solving now will be solved using a simple prompt.
Right.
But then at that point, you will have some other problem which Gen AI may not have an answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to upskill, need to learn new things, and that is how I think
Yeah.
in any cutthroat competition, especially in a startup world, so you need to keep upskilling. That only helps.
Yeah. So
That,
what kind of, so I think with Gen AI, a lot of grunt work is getting done by the Gen AI,
yeah.
right? So what kind of engineers do you think will be replaced by Gen AI going forward?
So see, engineers who are not upskilling or not applying themselves,
Hmm.
someone who is just they know that, okay, these are the 4 line of codes and this is how I need to write an
When you
API.
say upskilling, we are basically talking about depth of what they do, right?
Yes, depth and probably understanding. So just for an example, let's say you are working on Java,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you don't upskill yourself, ki what has come in a new version of Java,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say what kind of a CMS rule you want to apply, or what kind of a garbage collector rule you want to apply, so that your performance of your
Yeah.
API increases. If you're not thinking about those lines, and you are just something that, okay, मैनेजर ने बता दिए, एक एपीआई लिख देते हैं, that API prompt engineering can easily write for you. Even I as a manager would not want my team to be just doing that. You need to go see
Right.
and understand like what kind of indexes you want to apply, what is the performance of your API, how do you know what happens when suddenly there is a burst of throughput on your APIs. You need to think about those lines. So someone who is just plain vanilla again can easily get
Right.
replaced.
And I think even for Gen AI to work for you, you need to ask the right questions,
Exactly.
give right, correct instructions,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, because then otherwise you are wasting your time. So I
Hmm.
remember before Gen I, for us there was Stack Overflow.
Correct.
ठीक है. So Stack Overflow में if you don't write the right query on Google, it will not give you the right link.
Absolutely.
And I feel it is similar. For Gen AI, what ChatGPT is doing, Stack Overflow used to do us back then.
It's just giving us more specific answers.
Yes.
You don't have to go through so many questions. You just get
Exactly.
the answers right away.
I mean, at Stack Overflow, you used to have snippet of a third person, but
Right.
now ChatGPT will just tailor make it for yourself. And you can easily copy paste and do that.
Right.
But that was where you had to apply that. Okay, someone has given a solution, but your problem is not exactly that. But you can take something out of it then and utilize in your code.
Right.
So that is where you had to apply yourself. That gave us a lot of understanding of the systems as well. So it's just that the right prompt, right. You should know what you are trying to understand.
Correct.
From there. It just helps you figure out easily.
As a VP of engineering, you have almost 15 years of experience now. Do you still code?
I do. I mean, I feel it is very relevant.
How frequently? How much time do you spend?
So yeah, I think the intensity has gone down. It's not that I'll code every day, but I'll still say 20 to 30% of my time goes into coding and understanding what. I still do code reviews. I'll take up any pull request that has been raised and see what the people are writing, or maybe solve some problem, do a POC and then give it back to my team. This is the POC that I have done, and now you take it forward.
Right.
So I just want to be relevant. It's not that as a VP I can just talk or maybe do the management part of the thing, but as long as I'm close to the code, I'll understand what is happening.
So next question, a follow up on this. Most of the time what happens is your team thinks that you are a CTO, you are a VP, right? कि ये लोग करते ही क्या हैं, ये बस बता के चले जाते हैं और इनकी लाइफ तो chill है, right? So what is your answer? Maybe someone from your team probably thinks on similar lines. So what is your answer to them?
See, it's very relative. I know if there's a junior, they'll say कि यार आए 4 मीटिंग करी, 2 लोगों को काम दिया और इनका काम is done. But I still feel at every level you are doing something which the other person might not be able to understand. But for me, it is like I'll be thinking for next 2 months what is going to happen, what kind of work we have to do, and set the ground for it now, so that by the time that requirement comes in, they know what they have to do. Right. So it's always like the grass is greener on the other side. Someone might say कि यार code ही तो करना है, but I at my level may have 10 of other problems which they are not aware of कि business में क्या हो रहा है, what is it that we are building, or let's say infra side what is happening. So every developer has a limited scope, उनका code कैसा चल रहा है, but at leadership level you have to look at all the angles. So that happens, but it's just that कि ठीक है, it's relative. There's nothing to right or wrong in that.
So they do not understand that you are actually working to make their lives easier.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, as a engineer leader, I have to make sure that I have ample amount of work for my team. I don't want at any point, because it usually doesn't happen. In a product development, there's a life cycle, right? So one quarter you'll have a lot of work, the other quarter it stabilizes, you're just doing bug fixes. As an engineer, no one likes to do just bug fixing or refactoring. Every engineer wants to to work on some other set of a problem.
This is also very interesting thing, because सबको चाहिए होता है कुछ नया, कुछ interesting. But it's not possible to have something new every day.
Exactly.
You have to fix bugs, you have to do some maintenance work as well.
Yes.
So how do you approach these engineers who are always looking for something new? How do you satisfy their hunger?
So this was a very interesting thing. When I started into leadership role, this was the problem I encountered. That okay, what happened was suddenly we have an influx of lot of product requirement. So for 2 months the team is very high working on solving this problem, and then suddenly it's just maintaining BAU kind of a thing and refactoring. So then I later realized that people are not getting happy with this. They are in that hunger that okay, आज क्या करें अब, सारा सिर्फ दिन में bugs नहीं solve कर सकते. So what I started doing was, since we were doing sprint development mode, so I started to divide my sprints into 70-30 ratio.
Okay.
So 70% product work, 80% product work, and rest is my tech dates or BAU or some POC that I want to do. Let's say 2 years back I had to implement Kafka somewhere. So I said, let's do that in the sprint itself. So that's how I try to balance. Okay, we are doing product development, we'll do refactoring, but in the same sprint, so that you have a balance of both the things. Because I, as a manager, needs to solve for everyone, right? And then it was difficult during that time to convince your leaders, your managers कि यार product का काम नहीं उठा रहे हैं, थोड़ा refactoring करेंगे बीच में.
Right.
So, but then I had ways to convince them, convince the team कि this is what is necessary. The other thing that we did was created some guilds. Okay, so guild was, let's say I'll create 4 or 5 guilds. One could be called caching, what could be called, let's say, real-time event system or databases system, and then ask the team to pick their choice of guild and then work towards it. Let's say every 15 days we'll meet and see what have you done on database side. How pick up any query, see what are these slow queries coming on the platform, and then you solve it. So that was also an interesting stuff. So that is how I try to replicate here itself in Novatr as well.
Yeah, this is interesting actually. Yeah.
So that is how I try to maintain a balance. But yeah, I tell everyone कि हमेशा ऐसा नहीं होगा कि बस development करते जाओ and BAU नहीं आएगा.
Correct.
So that is, I try to tell them, and when you're doing this balance, they also understand, and then that's how I try to keep them motivated. कि ठीक है, let's solve. That's important.
Right. I'm sure you must have seen. क्या होता है कि even after spending 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, most people actually, not everybody becomes a VP or a CTO, right? Most people are stuck at middle management. Versus there are few people जो 4-5 साल के बाद भी शायद VP, CTO, leadership level पे चले जाते हैं.
Right.
So what's the difference? What sets them apart in your opinion?
Okay. So I've seen both kind of people. There were few folks who started off together, but somehow they reached the engineering ladder quite early, and some were like they were still stuck at some level. And someone like me who took their own sweet time to reach there. So what I felt is there are two sides. One is if you're technically really good, right, you are exceptionally well, and that's hardly any percentage, very less percentage of people who are exceptionally well,
Right.
very gifted. So whatever they'll do, things will just fly off. Some are hardworking, they need to spend a lot of time understanding the problem, and that what sets them apart, because they have seen all the growth levels. So with the folks which I saw reach the engineering leader very quickly, they didn't see the management side. Directly from a software engineer, maybe they became a CTO, or maybe they became an engineering manager directly, but they didn't understand what the leads needs to do.
Right.
So that was also a problem. Someone like me who went through all the phases, software developer, lead, manager,
in a very chronological order. So
chronological order, because I knew, like, as a lead you need to work differently.
Correct.
As a manager you need to work differently,
and then that will help you,
that
of
helps.
managing people at all levels.
Exactly,
to
because
understand what it takes.
as a lead you need to have a different repo.
Right.
As a manager you need to have a different repo. So that sets them apart. And for people who are not able to scale, it's just two things. One, I believe, is technical challenges. They're not able to come out and solve big problems, because that's how you get identified by any CTO or any VP in a big company, that okay, there's someone who is solving a lot of good problems, solving something that I didn't ask you, but you did it on your own, kind of a thing. So that is, if you're not doing those kind of things, then you'll not be getting recognized, and there'll be someone else who will be doing that.
Right.
So they'll move ahead of you, right? That is one. And the other is soft skills, I think also plays a part, right? How well you are able to communicate, how well you are able to manage your higher ups, how well you are able to manage your, one level down, what feedback do they give of you, like, so that also helps where,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody feels that okay, he's not a good communicator, then they feel he cannot be a good manager,
Right,
right?
right.
So both kind of skills you need to have, technical as well as soft skills, I believe that
Got it.
helps.
And so there has been a lot of noise around, 100 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours work week.
Yes.
How many hours you are working in a week?
So see, it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
I has been some kind of a person who is, don't mind slogging,
Mm-hmm.
don't mind putting in 10 hours if there is need, कि
Right.
यार बैठते हैं काम करते हैं करके ही जाएंगे.
Mm-hmm.
That is the attitude I've grown with, right? Though it has had its own implications as well, that I'm not able to give time to my family, but I certainly don't believe that there has to be a capping. As long as you are enjoying your work, as long as you are passionate,
Mm.
right, as long as there is a problem in front of you and it's still there and you're not able to solve, and मतलब मेरे साथ ऐसा होता है कि if I go home and I'm not able to solve that problem, it will still be at back of my mind, ठीक है,
Will
and
not be at peace.
will not be at peace. मतलब रात को सो रहे हो, सुबह उठ रहे हो, यार वो प्रॉब्लम अभी भी पड़ी हुई है कि
सही
उसको
बात
कैसे
है.
सॉल्व करना है. So if you're with that mindset, you will be slogging as many hours as I need, right?
Right.
So you can't cap it. There can be someone who is okay with spending, let's say, कि यार मेरे को ऑफर लेटर पे लिखा हुआ है 8 hours spend करने, I'll spend 8 hours and I'll go home. ठीक है then,
So
it's okay.
do you think it's possible to, climb up the leadership ladder?
Hmm.
CTO हो गया, CPO, VP, any leadership across any domain by working 40 hours a week?
See, I believe
What
effort तो
have you
डालना
what
ही
have
है.
you seen? What have you observed? How
See,
has these people, risen up from your experience?
so whoever I have met, whoever I've seen कि ये CTO या VP level बन गए हैं, and I used to aspire कि कभी मेरे को भी ऐसे बनना है. So those people used to spend time.
Hmm.
I've seen them here slogging, कर रहे हैं, problem solve करनी है, need to understand, go into detail of what is happening, what is not happening. So I don't think कि if you have that mindset कि मेरे को 40 hours ही लगाने हैं, then you need to be really lucky कि अब
Right.
you were at the right
You are either
time.
gifted.
Yeah, you are either gifted and you were at the right place, right time.
I think
मतलब
being
लिखा हुआ था
gifted
आपके लिए
being
कि
gifted is also, it's not just about that, because I think uh, just if you look at the quantum of various context, it takes time to grab all
it
that.
takes time because you need to do the grunt work as well.
Exactly.
Sometimes you also need to do, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि यार ये काम मेरे से छोटा हो गया.
Hmm.
You need to do that. Like today, at present also, sometime I write an API जो maybe I had started writing 10 years ago.
Hmm.
तो ऐसा नहीं कि वो काम छोटा हो गया.
Right.
करना है तो करना है, वो एटीट्यूड चाहिए. Like if you take Sachin, Virat Kohli, I'm sure they would have put endless hours practicing.
5-6 घंटे तो वो लोग काम करते नहीं होंगे.
करते नहीं होंगे तो मतलब वो जहाँ आज हैं without putting in effort तो नहीं पहुंचे.
I think how it is ना कि it's okay whatever you want, 40 hours, 10 hours, जो भी
हाँ,
करना है, but you should not compare your journey. Someone who is doing 40 hours a week should not be comparing their journey with someone who is putting in 80 hours a week. And
obviously.
you should not expect similar growth, similar outcomes,
Mm.
and be happy with where you are.
Exactly. I mean, if you're choosing to work 40 hours, so then whatever you get is your destiny, right?
Right.
Someone who is choosing to put in 80 hours, अगर उसको ज़्यादा मिल जाता है तो you can't complain ना कि यार इसको ज़्यादा मिल गया,
Correct.
मैं तो वहीं का वहीं रह गया. But then
Hmm.
आप जितना डाल रहे हो उतना ही मिलेगा. End of the day
Right.
is if you understand all the things and you're putting in a lot of effort. अब उसके लिए maybe there is someone who can just do it in 50 hours, someone who can do the same
Yeah,
amount
why
of work
not?
in
I
80
think
hours.
as
Doesn't
long
matter.
as, see, we are living in a capitalist society eventually,
Exactly.
so our growth is dependent on the outcome that we are generating for
Exactly.
whatever work we are doing.
Right.
As long as you're creating that kind of value, I think you can demand whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you know
Hmm.
your craft, if you know that okay, you are capable enough to solve these kind of problems. I remember while I was at nearby, one CTO, I walked up to him here. Now is the time. I have done all the API kind of thing development मैंने कर लिया. Now I want to get into machine learning.
Hmm.
So at that point we had nothing. हम कोई personalization recommendation नहीं बनाते, but I had that thing in me. यार, I want to learn this.
You have that had that hunger ना
Hunger.
कि भाई मेरे को करना है
हाँ,
कुछ ना
करना. So
कुछ.
I asked him कि give me 2 months. I'll learn. I'll implement. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll go back to what I was doing. So you need to do those kind of things. Fortunately for me, it worked. And then I started getting into new technologies line as well.
So I think that's what sets people who get to that leadership level versus people who are stuck at middle management,
Right.
is that hunger and drive to get things done and hunger and drive to grow.
Exactly. You can't get comfortable. मतलब आज
No, I
भी
think that is also fine as long as if you are happy with that, that
see,
is also
हाँ,
fine.
मतलब कोई वो result चाहिए, then you can't get
Right.
comfortable.
It's just that you can't be like कि यार मैं करूंगा भी इतना ही और मेरे
हाँ.
को चाहिए भी वही.
That's
So you
unfair
have to.
that's unfair on someone who's putting in a lot of effort. But yeah,
Right.
that's how it happens. Like personally, professionally, you need to put in effort to get the result.
Right.
So वो 40 or 80 or doesn't matter much.
Right. Makes
That's
sense. Interesting. So you have worked across different geographies
yeah.
and different domains.
Hmm.
Specifically talking about Noon, जहाँ पर you have teams, engineering teams both in India as well as in UAE, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how do you fill in that gap between two different cultures?
Yeah. So initially there was a lot of problem because for them Friday was off,
Mm-hmm.
and for us Sunday was a holiday, and we used to get a lot of requests from that team during Sundays. So I used to fill in that void on Friday or the Sunday so that my team doesn't get disturbed much. But eventually we worked out and made the other team also understand that okay, whatever work dependencies we have, let's resolve them during our common days and make sure the one day that is left, we are not disturbing each other much.
Friday and
Friday and
Sundays are
Sunday.
no dependency
Yeah,
days.
yeah, codependency days. So as a manager, I had to work with both the teams, like make them understand. And there was a lot of differences with way how people here in India, yep, we are faster than what they
That
were
is true.
at
They are
that point.
more laid back attitude,
Lead
more
back
chilled.
chill, and like in every culture. So from them, from their side, it was more of कि यार क्या जल्दी है इतनी. And we have always been like this. Okay, now that we have got the work, we'll do it.
Right.
So there, a lot of friction used to come. So I helped them understand each other. There was lead on in the UAE team, lead here in India. So made them, got them to gel together so
Made
that
them
they
friends.
so that their teams understand each other well.
Right.
So that was one thing that I tried to resolve.
Okay.
And also like technically they were not very well advanced.
That is
Right?
true.
That was a big challenge that we had, right? To help them understand कि यार जी जेसन ने ऐसा लिख दिया, आपने ये कर दिया. Like they used to work in XML, so we were working on JSON level. So a lot of friction used to come, but yeah, eventually it worked out because there were a lot of common things we started to doing, and also having a lot of interactions made each other's life easy. And it was a good experience for me as well because then how do you manage across geographies?
Right.
Just added more responsibilities in me. I was able to do that.
Got it.
Yeah.
सही है. And also, like you mentioned, right, कि you have been really crazy and passionate about what you do, right, which actually shows on a lot of the work that you have done so far. So how does it impact your work life balance, your personal life, and how do you kind of manage this?
It was it's still working on it. I'll say
It's a continuous process.
It's a continuous process. I have not been able to crack it fully. Just that you need to understand, be there for your partner, for your family whenever it is required. But I've always been inclined towards यार ये काम था, ये काम करना है. So, but yeah, now what I try to do is make sure Monday to Friday I do all the things that are required, and then at least have one day fully off so that I can cater to all the needs and make sure but I am not able to fully crack it, to be very frank, because at times it has happened that I'm staying in office till late. Release because still I feel that I have to be there if there's some major release going on, just in case something breaks, because people are quite young.
Right.
right? So that happens, and plus also I feel blessed that my partner also understands that working in a startup requires a different kind of understanding. So she's been supporting me throughout,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why what I keep telling her कि यार ठीक है ये अब करना है तो, but yeah, she is also helping a lot in that sense, I'll say.
Okay,
uh,
got it.
yeah.
What has been the most fulfilling engineering problem? I would not say challenging,
Hmm.
most fulfilling engineering problem
Hmm.
that you have worked on.
So there were quite a few that happened during my career. So one thing that I can talk about is while I was with Nearby,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what happened used to happen was we used to have a mobile app, and suddenly the marketing team one day just run a campaign, and we had an influx of people coming onto the app, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly we had built a system which could cater to, let's say, 1000 rpm. Suddenly it rose up to 5000 rpm, and my system crashed. I had no idea that this campaign is going to be run, and this led to a lot of business loss because you need to spend to get people
Right.
onto the platform. So that was a time where I realized, okay, I haven't built it exactly what is needed. I spent 2 nights just figuring out what was the problem.
So
uh,
was that an application level problem or an infrastructure level problem?
it was both.
It was both.
It was
Okay.
both. So
Mm.
we were using Elasticsearch,
Okay.
and it wasn't well managed in a way that it can handle all the queries at once,
Okay.
right? So then we understood why my Elastic was getting stuck. So I had to build a caching layer in between, think what happens when this campaign runs, because the idea is to take the customers to the campaign
Mm-hmm.
page. And then we had to build a lot of stuff where I know when this kind of traffic comes to the app, how should my app change. It can't be dynamic, because if it is dynamic, it is pulling all the data from backend. So what all data I can cache, how do I make sure that
But
people
tell me
move
one
into
thing,
the.
how does it impact something on the app side? Because app is a still client facing. One person is using one app. So how does it
Yeah, but
scale?
see, if let's say 10,000 people are coming, we had a storefront,
Mm-hmm.
and storefront was fully dynamic. So
Okay.
it used to go to my
Got it.
Elasticsearch to fetch data. It was a
Mm.
hyper-local app that we had built. So let's say
Right.
if you are in CyberHub, we want to show you deals across CyberHub, across Golf Course Road,
Yeah.
designed by your personalization or recommendation. So every data is unique for every customer, and it'll go to the backend fetch. So that's how my Elastic got clogged at that time. That was a
Got
very
it.
fulfilling problem that we solved, because later on when the campaign ran, we were able to accommodate 10x level
Okay.
traffic. That also opened my mindset that I could have thought of it earlier as well,
Hmm.
right? So that kind of problems when you solve, where you are able to scale your application beautifully, and it even then contracts once the traffic goes down. And infra wise, you don't put in a lot of money to just horizontally scale or
Mm-hmm.
vertically scale. So those kind of problems where with little resources you get maximum impact, gives a lot of satisfaction. So that was one of the problem that we
Got
solved.
it. So a lot of people think, I've spoken with a lot of people, and a lot of people now thinks that these kind of scalability issues can actually be resolved just on the infrastructure level. Is that possible?
No, it's not. आपने फॉर लूप लिख दिया और उसके अंदर इनफाइनाइट लूप लगा दोगे तो कोई भी इंफ्रा उसको नहीं हैंडल कर पाएगा,
Right. सही बात है.
राइट? सो part of the problem can be solved by infra, as let's say you scale it, you
Hmm.
scale it
But it's
horizontally.
also very expensive.
It
If you are
is
just
it is
dependent on
expensive,
infrastructure,
right?
it's a very
It is
expensive proposition.
very expensive,
Hmm.
and that is the first principle. You have to go to that first principle level. Ki how well are you writing the code?
Yeah.
Like, what is the DB query you have fired? Have you put in the right index?
Hmm.
Whether you could have got the data in one call or you want to have multiple calls. So
Right.
those kind of discussion needs to happen. Now आप vertically scale करते रहोगे, but at one point again it will not be
Hmm.
able to scale up if your code is not able to support. So application wise you have to make sure यार null pointer exception अगर डालना है तो कहाँ डालना है, कैसे डालना है, क्यों डालना है. Those kind of discussions are really important, and I think that is the first principle that you should take. Scaling infra should be a second option, I believe.
Right.
Understand your code first. is my suggestion.
What has been, what kind of engineering problems? So Novator is doing very interesting, lot of edtech, almost all the edtech that we see on day to day basis,
Hmm.
they are कोई या तो टेक के कोर्सेज करा रहा है या फिर यूपीएससी हो रहा है,
Hmm.
समथिंग अराउंड दोज लाइंस.
Right.
But what you guys are doing is very unique. You guys are creating professional courses for engineers and architects.
Right.
So what are the engineering problems that you are solving at Novator?
Okay. So first of all, in Novator, we are just catering to the AEC industry. AEC industry is architects, engineering, and construction.
Yeah.
So we are here to upskill these people so to enhance their technical growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we are building courses which you can take from us. It's a online cohort based program, 6 to 8 months long program where we teach you the concepts and teach you live concepts which you can utilize in your companies or will help you upskill. So for that, from the engineering perspective, we are building learner management systems. We are building payment systems.
So everything is in-house. You're not using any open
We are
source.
not using any in-house because
Okay.
it is very niche. No learning platform will provide you the kind of things that we are building. So we're
Understood.
making sure that the pedagogy, the way education needs to be imparted, so it's in-house only that we are developing. There's a lot of live sessions that happen, like a lot of quizzes, assignments you need to submit, and
Mm-hmm.
then they also get validated by industry mentors. And we are also working on the AI front where you can put in any query and the AI will try to answer.
Okay.
So that is also one thing that we are building. So a lot of cutting edge technologies we are using to build this kind of a system for the scale that we want to cater to. So quite a few engineering challenges that we have faced so far, interesting problems that we are solving with a good bunch of people that we have, limited people but quite motivated and having high ownership kind of a people that we are working with.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a journey that we have embarked on.
That's interesting. And what do you look for people, when you are hiring engineers
Hmm.
at Novator? So what should a person have to get hired?
I think with the limited amount of people that we want to have, we're looking for someone who has high ownership,
Mm-hmm.
takes accountability of what they are writing, and have eagerness to learn. Right? It doesn't matter which language do you know, which language you have worked on, what tech stack we have. So we are not very particular on a particular tech stack kind of thing, but what we are particular on is we need highly motivated individuals who are here, would want to join us to learn
Mm-hmm.
and to work towards building the product is what we are looking for. Someone who are able to apply themselves.
And how big is the team right now?
So currently, the engineering team is about 15 people.
Okay. And if
Right?
somebody wants to join you guys,
Yeah, sure.
where should they apply? What should they do? You
Reach
guys
out.
are hiring right now?
Yes, we do hire, but anyone who wants to join can reach out to me on LinkedIn
Okay.
and just connect with me and we can speak about.
Got
Yeah,
it.
that's how you can connect.
That is nice. And so when you say that, that you have a very young team,
Hmm.
a small team of 15 engineers, right? So uh, what kind of, what sets a certain engineer apart in your team?
Hmm.
From your perspective, what sets someone apart?
Uh, Someone who identifies the problem themselves,
Okay.
not someone that okay, I go and tell them that this is the problem that you need to solve. Someone who can identify that this is the problem in the system, this is the bug in the system, as small as the smallest bug only, and or maybe just someone just fires up New Relic, sees one API is having a high response time, goes there, solves, and tells yeah, this is how it needs to be solved, and make sure that they tell other engineers as well that
Mm-hmm.
this is how you need to do so that this problem doesn't occur again. Is a exceptionally well person who is just figuring out and solving their problems on their own.
And what's your tech stack?
Tech stack we work on is we started as a monolith on a TypeScript, but
Okay.
now we are totally moving towards microservices using Java, Python. We're also moving towards building event-based systems using Kafka. We started as a monolith, but now slowly as we are growing up in scale, like eventually everyone.
Yeah, but do you think microservices, event-based systems, are they overrated?
You need to use them judiciously,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can't happen that with the small code only you break it into 10 microservices and everyone is using events.
Right.
So you have to have that angle. You need to have your separation of concern,
Mm-hmm.
where you have to have that angle. Okay, now I need to carve it out. So we've run this whole system for 3 years on a monolith, but now we feel, because we're seeing a lot of problems that is occurring, and lot of interdependencies that get into a single code base, so we feel, okay, this is the part that we can separate it out. So you have to be very cautious, I'll say. Otherwise, it
Mm-hmm.
will add on to your cost, add on to your development cost, infra cost.
But turns out, it has become more or less of a blueprint these days,
Yes.
right? So everybody wants to do this
Hmm.
without. I'm not sure if they actually understand कि वो करना भी चाहिए कि नहीं.
हाँ.
कि यार माइक्रो सर्विसेज बना लो, इवेंट बेस्ड बना लो, 10-15 सर्विसेज बना लो, and I think too much isolation of concern is also, that also creates problem,
Exactly.
right? So what do you think of that? So when should they actually decide कि यार माइक्रो सर्विसेज करना है या monolith रखना है? And
हाँ.
also one more thing, so अभी recently आया था कि Instagram is a huge monolith code
Right.
base,
Right.
right? So now people are questioning, a lot of business folks are
Exactly.
questioning कि यार जब Instagram कर सकता है तो फिर
हम क्यों नहीं कर
हम
सकते?
क्यों नहीं कर
Even
सकते, हमें क्यों इतना
AWS,
वो करना
even
है?
Prime does did the
Right.
same thing.
Yeah.
See, I go by this principle that, let's say you are in a startup and
Mhm.
you're just trying to develop something, तो आप एक बारी में फरारी तो नहीं बना सकते,
Right.
right? You have to start small. You have to make sure your site runs, everything runs smoothly. So what I believe is, ठीक है, let's start with a scooter first, then maybe move towards a Maruti, then a Honda, and then probably a Ferrari or something.
Mhm.
Make sure that things keep moving. So
Right.
this is the principle that I try to apply here. एक monolith था, बना लिया, it was working good for 3 years, but now we feel कि you have to have some part which you can carve it out, because it is causing a lot of problem, because somebody is doing check-in and it is destroying the other person code, or having some bugs.
Yeah.
there. So that is where we started to recognize, okay, now we have the need, and we are not doing it fully for everything at once. So we'll
Yeah.
do a small part, see how it runs, and maybe then 6 months down the line, see which other service we need to take it out. Slowly and steadily we'll go there, and not add to our costs, right? But I know it is difficult to tell the business leaders why all of this is needed, to tell we need certain bandwidth just for this purpose. So I just try to make them understand in their language. Yeah, you also try to optimize your processes.
Actually, this brings me to my next question.
Hmm.
How do you bridge that gap? Because more often than not, what we observe is, that the engineering leaders, they do not understand what business is saying. Business doesn't understand what engineering engineers are saying, and this creates a rift or a friction between these two folks.
Right.
Right. And typically, what happens is tech becomes a black box for business.
Right.
And टेक को भी बहुत बारी नहीं समझ में आता है कि यार बिजनेस, मतलब दे गेट टू ऑब्सेस्ड विद टेक, they do not want to understand the business side of what they are doing. So what do you think about that, and how do you typically, how do you address this?
So I believe you need to talk in their language. See, business understand processes.
Yeah.
Business understands,
Money.
what do I do to make
ROI.
money? What is the ROI? I try to tell them that, okay, this is the tech debt that we have. This is the API. It is taking this much time. It is taking these many resources, and this is what it's going to cost me, like for next 6 months.
Right.
And if I break it down and if I optimize it, I can reduce my query time by, let's say, half, and I can reduce my infrastructure cost by, let's say, 10%, 20%. The other person is already convinced. यार पैसा बच रहा है, काम कर लेते हैं. Right. And the other thing is, I tell them ki, okay, this is something that is interesting for the team also, to keep them motivated. That is another factor that plays into the mind.
You save money there as well, right?
There as well, because
if somebody goes again, the attrition is high, then you
attrition
go
is
into the
high
entire
if you-
hiring cycle.
Exactly,
That is
because
also
you're
very
then
expensive.
spending 3 months, 4 months for the new guy to come in.
Exactly.
Then you will have someone who will teach the other person. So whoever joins will get effective after 4 months. उसके अच्छा तो you keep doing such things,
at a fraction
at
of
a
cost.
fraction of cost, and then you know talk in their language. अब
Yeah,
बताओगे कि मेरे को ये बनाना है, बना लो, अभी पहले भी तो बनाया था, अब क्यों बनाना है?
right.
So you need to speak in their language. Yeah, you also try to optimize your processes. You also try to do certain changes. This is what we are doing. It doesn't mean कुछ चल रहा है तो अच्छा ही चल रहा होगा,
Right,
right?
right.
I go and ask them कि आपका projection क्या है, how much traffic are you expecting? I tell them this will not work. Right? I have to do certain changes now so that 2 months down the line, when the traffic reaches that level, we are able to scale up. Otherwise, eventually it will lead to your business loss. So
Correct.
you need to tie every decision with the business. Some you can, some you can't. Right? Some आपको सिर्फ बस करना होता है कि यार ये
Right.
करना ही है.
But if you can tie out 90% with business
Exactly.
outcomes, बाकी 10% के लिए
And
it's
then
easier
you
to convince
and
and
then you have
communicate.
already built that rapport with the other person.
Yes, right.
ठीक है, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि they'll not trust you, they'll keep questioning you, right? So once you've done that, you have that trust, so the other person will always say, "Yeah, ठीक है, whatever you are saying."
Right.
Obviously, for them, it is very difficult to understand Redis क्यों लगाना है इसमें, right? You can't talk in
पहले
that
क्यों नहीं
language.
लगाया?
हाँ, पहले क्यों नहीं लगाया?
तुमने खराब बना दिया.
So उससे अच्छा है कि आप बात कर लो, यार इससे इतना पैसा बच रहा है,
Right.
इससे ये efficiency आ जाएगी सिस्टम में. This is what they'll understand, right? So that is how I try to manage.
Right.
But also at times I also have to manage the team. Let's say if the team is saying यार ये करना है, but I understand यार business priority है, ये development कर लेते हैं पहले, and then maybe next sprint or next month we'll do this.
Got
So
it.
that is also something that you need to balance. ऐसे नहीं हो सकता कि हर बार ही you're doing such things, and so you need to maintain that balance between both the parties.
Awesome. सही है.